Hello and welcome to Katie B Crafts. I'm Katie B and I am so excited that you have joined me for my very first ever YouTube video. I'm really excited to show you what I've made, but first I do want to give a shout out to some very important YouTubers who were instrumental in my being able to start my channel. And those channels are Jazza and NerdECrafter, who both supplied the craft kits that I got all of my tools and craft supplies from, that I was able to craft all of these figures with. The paints, the brushes, the tools, all of it came from those craft kits. And in fact, you'll see their logos on some of the items in this video. So shout out to NerdECrafter and Jazza, y'all rock. So without further ado, let's get into it. Getting started, I pulled together some of my supplies. All of these crafts, as I mentioned before, I got from the craft kits. Links to the channels below. Starting out with some tinfoil, I crumple it up until I'm happy with basic rock shape. I grab some of that Sculpey 3 and start conditioning the clay just by working it, smooshing it. I roll that out until I get a nice thin piece that I can wrap around the piece of tinfoil that I prepped for the rock. Once I'm happy with that, I grab a little more tinfoil and I start poking the rock, prepping it to look nice and rough. And I don't worry too much about that because I know I'm going to end up smooshing off some of that detail. So I go a little heavy-handed with the texture on the rock. Now you can see I am twisting some wire and adding some tinfoil at that twist point to secure it. And this is what I'm going to use to form the body of my mermaid. Grabbing a little more tinfoil to fill out the waist and the tail area. And I'm making sure the arms and the neck are where I want them in relation to the rock. Now I'm ready to start getting in there with some clay. When I'm happy with that clay, I'm ready to move on to the next step, adding a little tail, a little triangle curve, and I just smooth out those edges and taper them down. And when I'm happy with it, I smoosh it onto the edge of the tail and use my little rolly tool there to connect them. Next step, I'm adding a little definition to the waist, so that you can tell what's human and what's the fish bit. All right, now let's have a conversation about hands. I hate hands, no matter what type of art I'm doing, whether that's like watercolor, cross stitch, clay. Hands and faces are the bane of my existence. So we're just not going to spend a lot of time talking about the hands today. We're just going to kind of glaze over that. Another thing we're going to glaze over is the face. On this model, I was not too happy with how it turned out, and I actually changed that. So don't get attached. I'm about to show you the face that I sculpted, but it ends up going away later, so don't get too attached. Here I'm just shaping out the head, making sure the proportions are going to work, and then adding a little bit of Sculpey glue, I guess is, what's that called? There you can see the face. Ugh. I tried. I really tried. And you know what? If I had left it in the end, I could probably have made it work with paint. But I just couldn't see it the day that I was making that. I couldn't see it. So that ends up getting smoothed out, and then I just paint the face on in the end. But here you can see I am working on a portion of the outfit, adding some accessories here. Now I'm starting to get into a little more of the detail pieces because I've got the main base of what I'm doing down. So it's time for a little bit more detail as I'm adding in these additional pieces and accessories. And of course, the highlight of our show today is the hair. I probably spent the most time on the individual strands of hair than any other piece of this model. But it was worth it in the end, so I'm excited for you to see it. And just start layering those in there. And I'm just rolling out little snakes of clay and then coiling them and attaching them to the model. I'm not done with the hair here. Actually, you'll see in a bit I come back and fill in with some more, but I do start accessorizing at this point. I thought a nice little shell would look cute adorning her hair. Adding the little details to make it look, I don't know, shelly. I just plop that on the top. Now I'm coming back in, adding some scales, texturing that tail. And everything's going pretty good so far. Moving on, we correct our mistake with a little bit of Sculpey and reapply that shell. I'm not dramatic, you're dramatic. Now we're coming back in and adding more hair snakes. Hair? We're adding volume to the hair. That's what I should have said. Adding volume. I struggled with this piece here, as you can see. I wasn't getting the curl and the bounce that I was looking for, and I knew it was an important piece because it was going to be right on the front next to her face. So I pull it off and I just kind of work that curl before I put the piece on. And I just finesse it until I'm happy with the way it looks. And then again, make sure it's nice and attached to the other clay. One more accessory, we're making the gem or brooch that goes on her neckline. And the project was blessed by my cat Lily. Hi Lily. So she approves and I was able to continue. Here's where I get a little finicky with that face. I adjust the eyes a little bit so it looks more like she's smiling up, squinting into the sun. And then I try to fix the mouth because I felt it looked, I don't know, she looked like a fish, but it wasn't the fish. I mean, she's supposed to be human on the top, so I give up and I smooth that mouth right down. Ta-da! Looking good, baby. Adding some detail to the fin there. And we're getting close to baking. Coming in with a new piece of clay. Here I thought my mermaid might be hungry. Maybe she hadn't had breakfast. She might want a bit of a croissant. So no, it's supposed to be a shell. But it looked like, now I know I can make a clay croissant. So maybe that'll be my next project. Just another little detail I wanted to add to the back to make sure there was some fun stuff happening on the rock. And then I'm just taking little balls of clay and sticking them on the end of my little tool here that I smoosh onto the rock to look like barnacles. And here she is. This is her right before she goes into the oven and after she comes out of the oven. Not much different, but I don't have to be as gentle with her anymore. Yay, now it's time for painting. Ooh, it's the best part. All right, so these are all my paints. They're pretty. This is my Stay Wet palette. It makes it so that my paints don't dry out in between sessions. If I have a multi-day project, it's really helpful. Time for the first paint to go down. And get ready. Smoosh! So this is just a mid-tone brown. I'm going to come in later with some more gray tones and add speckles and such. But just like with, the sculpting project, I try to get the basic shape and form in. So the basic mid-tone colors, and then go back in and add highlights and lowlights after that. So I fill out that rock, and now I'm starting on the tail. Loving how that texture came out on the tail. Looks like some nice scales. And I fill that all in. Time for some skin tone. Again, I'm just adding in the mid-tones here, and we'll come back in with additional colors. So I've mixed up a green that's a little yellowier than the tail green for the palm/seaweed of her outfit. And now it's time to paint the hair. Yeah. Of course I picked purple for the hair. Don't come at me. I feel like you knew it was going to be purple. Mixing up a little pink for the shell accessory. And I think I also used the same pink on the tail as well for the bottom of the fin. Trying not to have too many focal colors. But for a while here, the tail looks just like a yummy slice of watermelon. It's delish. Now I want watermelon. Adding purple to my shell. I change that later, so don't get too attached. I think it ends up being like a pale pink. Now I'm going in with this blue here for her brooch. And adding some lighter skin tones, but these are very light layers. I still want the warmth of my base color to come through. So I'm not very heavy-handed in that second layer. Now I'm coming back in with some gray for the rock. I want to make sure that it's a brownish gray. So I'm mixing like black, cream, and brown mainly to get this color. And I'm not too precious about how I put this down. It's absolutely fine for some of that brown underneath to come through in patches, because those are going to turn into some real nice shadows. Now it's time to go into the details, starting with her eyes. And again, I'm really wanting her to seem like she's squinting up at the sun and just frickin' loving life. I'm actually using this character in an upcoming homebrew D&D game I've been working on. I'm the GM. It's called Umberlee's Lament. and it's set on the high seas, and all of my characters are pirates, the players. And they meet our mermaid here. Her name is Azulita. She's a Merfolk Druid and follower of Saranray, the goddess of the seas. And spoilers, but they're trying to stop the goddess Umberly, who has some nefarious plans. Coming back in to carefully just add some definition to the scales, just adding that silver. And here are those blue low tones. Turn the model upside down and just put blue on the underneath of all the hair bits. And now I'm coming back in with that silver, and only hitting those bits that are gonna glimmer in the sunshine. So only at the very top gets that silver highlight. Now I'm doing those barnacles, filling those all in with white. And so these are going to be white with just a little like pink in the center, a little creamy pink. Barnacles. Adding some speckles to the rock to make it look rockish. Because, yeah, sure. Trying not to go overboard with those specks because of the too much gene. I know earlier I told you about how much I hate hands, and here is a perfect example of why. I did my best with these, but they are what they are. And I'm adding a little bit of nail polish because they have that in the Underwater Kingdom. I've decided, so fight me. Another instance of the too much gene, but I couldn't help myself. I mixed up like a silvery green color and start adding like magical tattoo swirls. She's a druid, but you know, par for the course. Here is where I changed that color. I tried to change it right from purple to pink, realized I was going to need a base layer of white, and then I could come back in with my light purple. Just adding some definition there, just a couple of lines to make sure that the concept of a shell was still coming across. And now it's time for the rainbow alcohol ink, which, I mean, look, I think I put this stuff on every piece of this model except for the rock and her face. But it's just like hollow glitter suspended in an alcohol solution, and this camera can't capture the beauty of the glitter. So I put it on everything. Put it in her hair, I put it on the tail. All of her magic tattoos there get all glitterified. Of course her shell and her hair needs some glitter. I mean, she's magic, right? Time to gloss her up. I mean, she is emerging from the water, so everything is, in my imagination, it's all wet. There's waves happening all around her. And so I do, I think, 2 full coats of this gloss varnish. I got a drip. One way to deal with a drip. Wait for it to dry. Be careful with your sharp pointy thing. And then just kind of poke it till it goes away. Second coat. This time I start from the bottom. I did paint the bottom, but as you can see, when I didn't wait for that paint on the bottom to dry, and some of it rubbed off, but I couldn't be bothered. So it is what it is, and I like it that way. Time for some dirt and leaves and whatnot. Some foliage. I'm adding some wood glue here. This is way too much. And then I take a brush and start applying the glue on the bits of the rock that might have, accumulated some sand, maybe even a little bits of seaweed. Now for the foliage, take a couple of choice bits, and the technique here is what I call the pinch and poke. You got your glue there, you take your little tweezers, and you pinch and you poke. Now I'm ready for a little bit more of my sandy looking sand. Almost done, just adding in, filling in some of the bits that I missed the first time that I thought maybe needed a little more. And then I'm just using the fallout to fill those spots in. Adding a little tufts of seagrass. These are my favorite little things. How cute are these? They do have a sticky bit, but I like to add a little bit of extra wood glue. And pinch and poke. She's done. Well, that's it, everyone. Here is the final project. She is looking pretty good. She's got her, hollow glitter. She's got her little croissant here for lunch coming up. I have really enjoyed this. I'm about to show you the final results and some nice close-up shots. First, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining me with this video today. Hopefully, if you like this content and you want to see more, you're going to click those buttons down below, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can find out when I post next. Until we meet again, I'm Katie B, and this is Katie B Crafts. Have a good one. Don't be awkward. La 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 la.